Tonight's subject that I would like to deal with is living or live without stress, mastering the Yetzer Hara. Perfect timing. Live without stress, mastering the Yetzer Hara. Now, you and I both know that stress is a killer. Number one killer. Heart disease, obesity, help me out. High blood pressure, mental health issues, cholesterol. It's not eating eggs. It's stressing out over the stupid things that happen in life. Now, I'm not here to tell you, and I'm not here to prescribe to a philosophy that once you do this, you will never have stressful things happen to you in your life. Now, that's foolish thinking. Once Rabbi Pinchas of Koretz entered into the Beis Midrash, the study hall, and he noticed some of the yeshiva students stopped talking when he walked past, and he asked him what it was that they were talking about, and they told the Rebbe that they were saying how they were afraid of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and it would pursue them. And the Rebbe responded, "Don't worry, you aren't in such a high level that it would ever pursue you." Now, why did I open it up this way is one of the things that we have in common in this group, in this community, is the closer that you've attempted to get to Hashem, the closer you get to learning and study Torah and take on mitzvah, the worse your life gets, not the better. It gets more complicated. And with that being in mind, being more complicated, I had a very sort of aha moment, an interesting moment in a conversation early this week with someone, that we're talking about the Yetzer Hara and its role in our life. The first thing that we have to ask is, what is the Yetzer Hara? And for those people who will be watching this video, I want you to understand that every human being comes with a good inclination and a negative or evil inclination. The question would be, is the Yetzer Hara, or the evil inclination, is that like the animal soul? Because there's sort of some interchange between the two, it seems. Well, we understand that the animal soul is not the Yetzer Hara. The animal soul is the base nature that is within every human being as well. It is the part of you that procreates. It's the part of you that eats every day, does the natural things that it's supposed to do. It's not evil. It just is what it is. But the evil inclination has a very special purpose. The Yetzer Hara has one evil inclination. Think about it, about what it means. Your inclination is to do evil. That's why we call it the evil inclination. For example, the desire to sin in any capacity. The Yetzer Hara is related to the Hebrew word yitziyur, meaning a form. In other words, the Yetzer Hara takes the raw material, the animal soul's benign passions, and provides it a form by channeling it toward immoral deeds. So, for example, the base nature, our animal nature, would be for procreation and etc. But the Yetzer Hara would cause you to contemplate that so much that you would end up committing sinful acts. The animal nature, fight or flight. The Yetzer Hara wants you to punch somebody in the nose the first time you get angry, right? It has a major role in all of our lives. Thus, the Yetzer Hara, the form of animal passion, must be destroyed or at least ignored or mastered. Since it is intrinsically evil, the animal soul, on the other hand, that raw passion needs only to be reformed and rechanneled. Generally, this needs to go step by step. Once the bad form of the Yetzer Hara is destroyed and weakened, then it becomes possible to provide the animal passion with a new positive form, meaning the animal nature needs to know its place, and at the same time, we have to be very aware that we have an evil inclination. The animal soul naturally gravitates toward what it perceives as pleasurable and gratifying. As physical beings, our default pleasures are physical and often of the forbidden variety. It is our task to reprogram the animal soul to teach it that while it is fine to satisfy our cravings, it should crave that which is better and proper for us. If the animal soul can be successfully programmed to desire the divine, the practical benefits will be great. The problem is that we have a war between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, evil inclination, a constant battle. One would ask, what is the purpose behind having two of these negative forces? The animal doesn't have an evil inclination. What it does isn't evil. What it does is natural. An animal eats another animal, it's just natural. It's just they have no free choice. The reason why that we have a Yetzer Hara is Hashem wants you to have true free choice. Because if you didn't have a Yetzer Hara, you wouldn't do anything wrong. You would do what comes natural, and God would not judge you for what you do naturally. But you will be judged on the things that you make, or decisions that you make to commit a greater sin when in reality you ignored the good inclination that says to not do it. Think about for a moment your excitement for a fine steak, the best, as opposed to your excitement about doing a mitzvah. Can you imagine channeling the excitement, enthusiasm toward praying and giving to charity as you would wanting a very fine steak? Rabbi Noson once remarked that evil inclination cares much less about your sin than the depression that follows it. This is because by the means of depression, it can be further trap the person into, and gain much more from the first single sin. I had a story that I conveyed to Richard this week, and I will tell it because it's the best way that I can describe what I'm talking about. Let's first say this, and then I'll tell the story. The Yetzer Hara is like a little man that runs around screaming, "The sky is falling." At the same time, that little person in your mind is the thing that is trying to encourage you to react to everything that he says. It's as if, and it's the best explanation, it'd be like this little man going around terrorizing you, making you think that you're the most horrible individual that lived, you cannot ever succeed, and at the same time, this same person is wanting you to react to your negative inclinations. Why do we have stress? We have stress because we feel hopeless in a situation. How many times have we felt like the end of the world has come over a particular problem, and when you think back 5 years down the road, you go, that was really kind of silly because it all worked out. Hasn't just about everything in our life always just kind of worked out? Why is it in the moment we can't figure that out? It's because we have a Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is going, no, you need to overreact. You need to do something about this. If you let this keep going on like it is, it's going to mess up your family. It's going to mess up your home. And look, the best thing you can do is run away from your whole problems. Get away from it. Divorce the old klutz. Right? That's your Yetzer Hara. It's telling you what to do. And then when you make the decision to do it, what happens? Yetzer Hara says, you are such a miserable human being. You made this decision. And then with the help of the Satan, Hasatan, he accuses you before Hashem. Look at this person. They're supposed to be righteous. They just blew a gasket right in the middle of the store over overpriced items. My wife was telling me today she was in the store and a lady came up to the counter and she was going to pay for a loaf of bread. It was a very good deal. And she went, oh no, I'm not paying this. It's like expired. Made a big deal out of an expired piece of bread. My wife and I, one Thanksgiving, decided, you're going to know this story, decided that we were going to just have a chilled out Thanksgiving. My sons were 12, 9, and whatever Emily's age, 6. And we were just going to have like just a real simple dinner, and then we're going to go watch a movie or something. And Nate and Michael, my two boys, I only later found this out, that they constantly conspire to pester me, right? They would They would make me think that I've slept all day when I woke up because I work night shift. And they'd tell me, hey, it's late, you need to get up. And really, I'd slept 2 hours. I don't know if you knew they had done this in the summertime. And I would get up, and I'm blurry-eyed, and they're kind of helping me around, and they're getting me coffee, and they're being all nice. Really, they were winding me up, knowing that I'd only slept a couple of hours. And then I say, hey, we'll go outside, we'll see you tomorrow, and they go outside to play. And then I realized they just woke me up, and I've slept 2 hours, right? So they're constantly winding me up. So this time, they come to the dinner table in their underwear. I told them, I said, it's totally inappropriate. Go put some clothes on to sit at the table. So they are in the room, and you can hear, ow, oh, ow, Michael, stop. Yeah, that's what you hear the whole time. Finally, I said, get in here quick. We're ready to eat, so we're waiting. Little Emily's sitting there like she always is, prim and proper, ready to eat. They come in, and now they have underwear and T-shirts. I was like, go get some clothes on. Right? They're winding me up. I only know that they do this kind of stuff after they're adults. They wouldn't tell me then. So they then finally come in and they're sitting around the table. And I said, let's have a divine moment. I said, let's talk about all the good things that has happened in your life. I said, Nate, we'll start with you. You're the eldest son. And Nate was like, oh, I'm thankful for, and I can't even remember what asinine thing he said. Right? But it just got on my nerves. And I was like, okay. And then by then, Michael and Emily are laughing. Right? It's funny. And then we get to Michael, and Michael's like, I'm thankful for, and I have no idea. It was something insane. Right? And I'm like, oh, I am so annoyed. Do you remember this, babe? Yeah. And then my daughter is there, and then she sort of chimes in. I was like, look, let's just eat. So we eat. And finally, Nate and Michael's like, do we have to eat this? I'm like, no, you don't have to eat. Just go outside. So they're outside playing, and I start winding myself up, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, your parents. And my wife was putting away the dishes, and I'm going, we're trying to raise these kids to be respectful, and they're not being respectful. And, you know, we do the right thing as parents, and we try to be a right example. I'm just going, and I'm putting dishes in the sink and bringing stuff over and cling, 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 you know, making noise. And she's just kind of like, you know, it's not that big of a deal, and, you know, we'll get over it. And, you know, and I said, you know what? No, I'm gonna set this straight. So I go out in the garage, hit the garage door, raises up, and they're like shooting basketball. They totally ignore me. Nate, Mike, come over here. Nothing. Nate, get over here now. So they come over, bump, bouncing the ball as I'm trying to talk to them, and I'm like, give me the ball, right? And as I'm talking to them, they both have this silly grin on their face, right? Do you know what all these parents? You know what I'm talking about? And I said, wipe that expletive, first time ever with my kids, grin off your face, and the shock on their face. And then Michael was like, you cussed us. And I'm like, everything that I was wanting to accomplish was just shot out the cannon, right? I just said, go play, shut the door. Felt horrible. Why did I say all this? Is because I allowed my Yetzer Hara, my evil inclination, to wind me up. Instead of sitting there thinking about, okay, they're kids, they're having a great time. It's Thanksgiving. They're getting ready to enjoy the movie. Whatever. I didn't even think about that. I had my ego involved. My ego was hurt because I didn't feel like that my sons were being the great patriarchs that they should be or something. I don't know. And it was a very, very awakening moment for me, and especially since I used language that I shouldn't have used. And as I was telling Richard that, I said, you know what, the big thing that it reminded me of is I was the one that had the problem around the table, not my kids. Because I was letting them stress me out. I was letting my kids stress me out. Because whatever they were doing, my Yetzer Hara was encouraging me to react to what they were doing. Instead of step out of the situation, think clearly, think with my Yetzer Tov, and be logical about the whole process. The Yetzer Hara was doing just like my two boys were doing, and every time something would happen, it would say, see, you're not a good father, because if you were, these kids wouldn't be acting this way. Right? You hear it? Whispers in your ear. And if you were the best quality father you could be, you would have control of the situation. Your kids wouldn't be this way. And then, after they go outside, the Yetzer Hara is saying, you know what? You need to take control of this situation. Now watch this. Yetzer Hara is like, you need to take control. You need to discipline those boys, because they need to know who's the boss. I'm like, yeah, Yetzer Hara, that's true. And I go out and I hit the garage door and it comes open, and then we have that seminal moment. And as I'm walking away, the Yetzer Hara says, oh, what a miserable human being you are. Do you see how it works? How much stress is produced in our life because we listen to the Yetzer Hara. And we have got to master the Yetzer Hara. The only way to master the Yetzer Hara is the study of Torah, is the study of Musar, or ethics, that comes from like the works of the Ramchal or the way of God, really refining the deepest parts of ourselves and understanding that we have, if we don't think clearly, we'll be guided by life, by our evil inclination. The next time somebody says something to you, and the first response in your mind, you may not do anything about it. But if your first response is anti-Torah or anti the ethics that is found within Torah, you need to put the brakes on, put the bridle in the horse's mouth, whatever you have to do, and say, okay, stop. Stop just a second. I am now getting ready to have a free choice moment. The free choice moment means I can either burst out into something that will produce a sin, or I can choose to do something that is righteous and good and pure. And my friend, that is the whole secret to lessening the stress in our lives. Now, I have to say this in closing. You can do all the things that you could possibly do to reduce your own stress, but there's going to be a problem. If you're around people who are stressful, it's going to be tough, because now you have to learn how to react to people that are stressful. Right? If other people are being ruled by the Yetzer Hara, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to respond to them. The secret isn't you giving them Yetzer Hara moments. The secret is you responding out of godliness, purity, humility. All of those things are important. And then last, I must say this. The Yetzer Hara is only truly identified in our life through personal prayer. Now, we know the study of Torah is important, but until you come before Hashem and you really examine yourself and say, look, here are these things that's happened to me. You've got to help me out. You have to help me to see where I've responded in such negative manner. And realizing, if I don't change these things, then what's going to happen is I will be controlled by my Yetzer Hara, and that produces stress. You may never sin. Now, let me help you here. You may never sin because of your Yetzer Hara. But you can sin, when I say sin, do a sin, like go out and rob a bank or something. But it's just as great a sin to not have emunah and trust in Hashem. It's just a greater sin to say, my problems are bigger than Hashem. Right? My problems are bigger than Hashem. And if you get to that place, that's a sin. Right? Even if you say, you know what, I didn't listen to Yetzer Hara, I didn't smoke crack, I didn't beat anybody up, I didn't rob banks, I didn't commit any immorality. However, I walked around most of my life worrying, full of stress, not sure what's going to happen the next day, taking every problem, making what you used to call it, making a mountain out of a molehill. You realize that that is not faith. When we make mountains out of molehills, it's not faith. And when you do things that are stress responsive or stress-induced responses, it can be a lack of faith in your life. So with that being said, it's time to master the Yetzer Hara through prayer, through study of Torah, and through our humility towards others around us. So, good. Now let's have a Haftorah portion.